True success is misunderstood. It's glorified in moments, measured in money, ranked in titles, captured in highlight reels, and sold in simplified slogans. But real success, the kind that lasts, the kind that feels right when you're alone, the kind you can live with when the noise is gone, is not a product of luck or charm or shortcuts. It's not earned overnight, and it's not defined by external results alone. True success is built from within, quietly, intentionally. And it's almost always slower, harder, and more layered than anyone tells you. Most people chase success by mimicking behavior. They look at people they admire and try to copy what they see. They copy the routine. They copy the tone. They follow the trend. But they miss the foundation. Because what you see on the surface is not what created the outcome. What you see is the result of deeper concepts, principles that govern the way those people think, choose, decide, and show up. Concepts that guide them when no one's watching. That shape their behavior when the pressure's on. That define them long after the applause fades. And if you don't understand those concepts, if you don't internalize them and make them your own, you might build something, but it won't last. You might get noticed, but you won't feel fulfilled. You might win, but the victory will feel hollow. Because true success is not just about winning. It's about being aligned while you win. It's about being proud of who you are becoming while you're building. It's about walking through the process with character, with strength, with a standard that holds even when things break. The world tells you to focus on results, and results matter. But the problem is when you become so fixated on outcomes that you forget to examine the structure behind them, the architecture, the invisible framework that determines how high you can build, how well you can lead, how far you can go without crumbling. Everyone wants to build big, but not everyone builds deep. And without depth, the weight of success will break you. So you need something more than tactics. You need more than a productivity system. You need more than a new morning routine. You need guiding concepts, anchors, fundamental truths that make you resilient, that make you wise, that make you someone who can handle the responsibility of success. Because success is a weight. And if you're not ready to carry it, it'll crush you. This is not about hype. This is not about being loud. This is not about doing what's popular. It's about clarity, about maturity, about aligning your ambition with something that actually lasts. Because the cost of building the wrong version of success isn't just burnout, it's regret. And the longer you go chasing what looks good instead of what's true, the harder it is to make your way back. So this is your reset. This is your recalibration. Not a script to follow, but a lens to look through. 6 concepts that don't just help you win, they help you win well. 6 internal codes that guide the way you work, the way you show up, the way you treat people, the way you lead. You won't apply all of them at once. You'll grow into them layer by layer, season by season. They're not rules. They're mirrors, tools for refinement, for alignment, for wisdom. And once you start seeing through them, everything begins to shift. You stop copying other people's lives. You stop comparing yourself to other people's timing. You stop needing constant reassurance, constant applause, constant permission to be great, because you've anchored yourself to something real, something unshakable, something you can stand on long after the emotion wears off. The first fundamental concept for achieving true success is to stop outsourcing your self-worth. Because as long as your value is determined by things outside of you, your identity will always be unstable. And if your identity is unstable, your behavior will be reactive. You'll chase things you don't need. You'll tolerate things you shouldn't. You'll make decisions out of fear, not wisdom. You'll live in a constant state of performance, trying to earn love, earn respect, earn belonging. But true success cannot grow in a life where worth is rented out to the opinions of others. Most people have never been taught how to separate value from validation. They confuse applause with alignment. They confuse being noticed with being needed. They learn early on that when they perform well, they're rewarded. When they say the right thing, they're affirmed. When they show up a certain way, they are accepted. And without realizing it, they begin to attach their identity to outcomes. If I win, I'm worthy. If I lose, I'm not. If they approve, I'm enough. If they don't, I need to change. It becomes a cycle, a trap, a constant pursuit of proof that you belong. And that trap doesn't disappear when you succeed. It just grows more expensive. The applause gets louder, so the pressure gets higher. And before long, you're not leading from a place of strength. You're surviving the pressure of being liked. But true success, real, rooted success, starts from a different place. It starts with knowing your value before the scoreboard reflects it, before the paycheck validates it, before the room claps for it. It starts with making peace with the truth that you don't have to earn your right to grow, to try, to lead, to build. You don't need permission to believe in your purpose. You don't need a green light from the crowd to keep walking. This kind of mindset is rare because it's quiet. It doesn't perform. It doesn't need to convince. It doesn't need to broadcast every success just to feel okay. It moves in peace. It builds with clarity. It leads with humility. And it doesn't get easily knocked off center because the foundation isn't made of feedback. It's made of truth. You are not your metrics. You are not your mistakes. You are not your likes, your views, your income, your resume, or your reputation. Those things can reflect what you've built, but they don't determine who you are. And if you don't learn that early, you'll spend your life in reaction mode, reacting to praise, reacting to criticism, reacting to trends, always trying to catch up with some new version of success that's just out of reach. Instead, you learn to move from identity, not ego, not arrogance, but identity, rootedness, a quiet sense of internal security that says, I know what I bring to the table, and I don't need to prove it every minute. That posture makes you stable. It makes you consistent. It makes you more powerful than the person who's constantly scrambling for the next win. And it frees you to grow because now you can take feedback without falling apart. You can fail without losing yourself. You can adjust your path without assuming you've lost your value. You're no longer performing for affirmation. You're leading from alignment. That shift creates energy. It creates clarity. It creates trust, and people feel it. You become someone people want to follow, not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most grounded. Not because you always win, but because you don't collapse when you lose. Not because you're perfect, but because you're anchored. You have nothing to prove, only something to give. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you strive from a better place. You still work, you still grow, you still raise the bar, but you do it because it honors who you are, not because it proves that you're enough. That shift, that clarity, that internal rootedness, it's what creates space for true success. The kind that doesn't just impress people, but changes lives. Next, the second fundamental concept for achieving true success is to master the art of internal alignment. Because if what you say, what you believe, what you do, and how you feel are all pulling in different directions, your life will always be chaotic. Maybe not on the outside. Maybe your routines are organized and your calendar is full, but inside, it feels off. And no amount of success can compensate for that kind of tension. Alignment is not perfection. It's not getting everything right all the time. It's coherence, harmony, a steady sense that you're moving in the right direction, that your work reflects your values, that your goals reflect your identity, that your ambition reflects your truth. Most people don't have that. They have ambition, but it doesn't come from the inside. It's borrowed, it's adopted, it's inherited, it's mimicked from people they admire, but never examined. They chase things that look good on paper, degrees, milestones, metrics. They build careers that feel impressive, but not fulfilling. They lead teams with power, but not with peace. And over time, it wears on them. Because they're not living, they're performing, they're not deciding, they're conforming. They're trying to meet a standard that was never theirs in the first place. And that's where burnout lives. Not just in doing too much, but in doing the wrong things. Not just in working hard, but in working without alignment. It's the exhaustion that comes from pretending, from ignoring the signals, from silencing your intuition just to keep climbing, from trying to move forward without asking whether forward is even the right direction. But when you choose alignment, everything shifts. You slow down just enough to ask better questions. Not what's next, but what's true. Not what looks good, but what feels right. Not what will make people notice, but what will make me proud when no one's watching. And those questions, they change the entire map. You start saying no to things that used to tempt you. You stop chasing approval from people who don't even live by the values you hold. You stop doing work just because you can, and you start doing work that calls something out of you, something deeper, something more honest. This doesn't always mean radical change. You don't need to burn your life down to find alignment. Sometimes it just means adjusting, refocusing, asking what's behind your drive, reconnecting your energy to your identity, realigning your ambition with your principles, listening to the quiet knowing you've been too busy to hear. And when you do that, you start to feel lighter, not because life gets easier, but because your choices become cleaner. There's less friction, less inner conflict, less pretending. You don't need to hype yourself up every day because your direction actually matches your conviction. You don't feel like you're fighting yourself just to make progress. Alignment gives you clarity, and clarity is power. It lets you move faster with less anxiety. It lets you say no with less guilt. It lets you lead with fewer words because your presence already carries integrity. And when your life is aligned, when your head, heart, habits, and actions are pulling in the same direction, people trust you because you're not scattered. You're not selling something you don't believe in. You're living it. That's what creates influence, not volume, not charisma, but alignment. The sense that who you are matches what you do, that your words reflect your beliefs, that your pace reflects your priorities, that your decisions reflect your truth. And when people feel that, they're drawn to you, not just for what you produce, but for who you are. Next. The third fundamental concept for achieving true success is to build consistency that outlasts motivation. Because motivation is a mood, and moods are unstable. They rise and fall with sleep, weather, comments from strangers, one email, one mistake. But consistency, real consistency, that's a decision. a discipline, a pattern that holds even when your emotions don't. People wait for motivation to begin. They wait to feel ready, to feel energized, to feel inspired. And some days they do. They wake up on fire. They act fast. They feel proud. But then it fades. Life happens. Momentum breaks. They fall off. And because they relied on motivation to start, they now need motivation to restart. And that's where most people lose. Not in their ability to perform, but in their inability to return. True success isn't built on intensity. It's built on rhythm, repetition, the willingness to do the work even when it's inconvenient, even when it's boring, even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Because those are the moments that train your nervous system to show up on command, not just on inspiration. You have to decide who you want to become, and then align your actions with that decision long enough that it becomes identity, not habit. Identity, not something you try to do, something you simply are. And that kind of consistency doesn't come from hype. It comes from clarity, from environment, from systems, from the small decisions you stop negotiating. You build that consistency the same way you'd train a muscle, slowly, repeatedly. You don't miss twice in a row. You don't let one bad day define the week. You don't spiral every time you feel off. You hold the standard, not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're committed. And commitment always outperforms inspiration. This kind of consistency makes your mindset resilient. You stop wasting energy deciding whether or not to do the thing. You've already decided. You don't have to wake up and debate it. You don't have to rely on willpower. You just follow through, quietly, relentlessly. And that follow through, that's what builds trust. You start trusting yourself. Other people start trusting you. Not because you're dramatic, but because you're dependable, because you show up, because your results are a byproduct of your integrity. And that integrity isn't something you shout about, it's something you live. Consistency clarifies your capacity. You stop chasing goals that don't match your lifestyle. You build a structure that supports your energy. You stop working in sprints that burn you out and start building systems that sustain you. You learn how to win the day, not the year. One representative, 1 hour, one block at a time. And when you mess up, which you will, you don't dramatize it. You don't quit. You reset. You recommit. You repair the rhythm instead of walking away from the instrument. That recovery is what separates those who grow from those who start over again and again. True success isn't built on motivation. It's built on rhythm, on quiet work that compounds, on small commitments that build big lives. And when your life is built on consistency, not hype, no one can take that from you because you weren't built by mood swings. You were built by muscle memory. And that memory is what makes you resilient, reliable, and ready for the weight of success. The fourth fundamental concept for achieving true success is to respect your seasons. Because life doesn't run on a straight line. It's not always progress in perfect forward motion. Sometimes you're building. Sometimes you're planting. Sometimes you're pruning. Sometimes you're recovering. And if you treat every season like it's supposed to look the same, you'll misinterpret your growth. You'll think you're behind when you're really just preparing. You'll think you're stuck when you're actually being shaped. Most people don't give themselves permission to have seasons. They expect their energy, creativity, output, clarity, and momentum to be on full power all year long. And when they hit a dip, they panic. They push harder. They criticize themselves. They question everything. Not because something's wrong, but because they've confused rest with regression. But the people who build real sustainable success, they learn to recognize the season they're in, and they learn how to work with it instead of against it. They don't panic when it's quiet. They don't slow down when it's time to sprint. They don't plant seeds and expect a harvest the next morning. They know how to stay present with the process. You're not always going to feel on fire. You're not always going to be launching something. You're not always going to be growing fast. But every season still serves you if you pay attention. There's value in the slow days. There's clarity in the silence. There's restoration in the rest. There's wisdom in the waiting. You have to stop measuring yourself by someone else's season, comparing your process to their results, judging your winter by their spring. Because if you do that, you'll rush what needs time. You'll skip what's sacred. You'll try to bloom before your roots are deep enough to hold the weight of success. So you tune in. You stop asking, am I behind? And start asking, am I aligned? You stop asking, why is this taking so long? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You stop fighting the rhythm and start listening for what this moment is requiring of you. Maybe you're in a season of building where the foundation is forming, but no one sees it. Maybe you're in a season of letting go where what used to work doesn't anymore. Maybe you're in a season of breakthrough where everything feels new and scary and fast. Or maybe you're in a season of quiet where clarity is forming, but it hasn't fully surfaced yet. No season is better than the others. They're just different. They each carry a purpose. And your job isn't to rush through them. It's to honor them, to mine them for what they're worth, to stay rooted long enough for them to do their work in you. This doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop expecting the same output from every chapter of your life. You stop punishing yourself for not moving at the speed you moved last year. You stop assuming that slower means worse. You lead yourself with wisdom, with maturity, with rhythm. And when you do that, you gain strength. Not just physical or mental strength, but emotional and spiritual strength. You learn how to be with yourself in every stage. You learn how to keep going without pushing too hard. You learn how to be still without falling asleep to your purpose. You become someone who understands that progress isn't always loud, but it's always moving if you stay aligned. Next, the fifth fundamental concept for achieving true success is to build emotional endurance. Because it's not the strategy that breaks most people, it's the pressure. It's not the lack of opportunity, it's the inability to stay grounded while carrying weight. You can have the plan, you can have the vision, you can have all the tools, but if you crumble every time life pushes back, success will always feel just out of reach. Endurance isn't built in moments of ease. It's forged in the tension between what you want and what life throws at you, between what you expected and what actually showed up. Most people want success without having to carry resistance. They want growth without weight, progress without setbacks, momentum without challenge. But that doesn't exist. To grow, you will be stretched. To lead, you will be misunderstood. To pursue your purpose, you will face fatigue, doubt, delay, disappointment. There's no way around it. The only way is through. And emotional endurance is what allows you to keep walking through it without shutting down, without lashing out, without letting your lowest moment become your new standard. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It doesn't mean ignoring how you feel. It means you stop being controlled by how you feel. You stop making decisions that protect your emotions at the expense of your purpose. You start leading yourself in moments when your emotions want to lead you. It's easy to show up when you feel strong. It's easy to speak clearly when everything is working. It's easy to lead with joy when there's no resistance. But true growth is measured by how you lead yourself through discomfort, through the unknown, through the messy middle where nothing feels certain. You train for that by practicing presence in pressure. You don't run from it. You don't numb it. You stay with it. You breathe through it. You let it teach you. You realize that you can be tired and still move. You can be afraid and still decide. You can feel uncertainty and still walk with clarity. And every time you do that, every time you hold your center instead of spiraling, you gain strength, internal strength, the kind that compounds, the kind that doesn't come from hype or external validation, the kind that says, I've been through worse and I'm still here. The kind that says, even if it shakes me, it won't break me. This endurance shows up in the little moments when you don't snap back at someone who deserves it, when you stay silent instead of defending yourself needlessly, when you keep your word even though you're tired, when you show up again after a discouraging day. It's not always visible, but it's always valuable. And it makes you someone people can trust, not because you're always in a good mood, but because you're consistent. You don't let pressure steal your presence. You don't let fear make your decisions. You don't fall apart every time life doesn't bend to your preferences. You move from principle, not from panic. That's emotional endurance, and it's rare. But when you have it, you stop being afraid of what's next. You stop hesitating every time things get hard. You know the weight won't crush you. It'll shape you. And that shape is what prepares you to carry greater responsibility, greater impact, greater purpose. Next, the sixth fundamental concept for achieving true success is to anchor your life in service. Because the more success you create, the more tempting it becomes to make it about you, your goals, your dreams, your fulfillment, your brand, your name. But the truth is, the most fulfilled people on earth, the ones who last, the ones who lead with peace, the ones who leave something behind that actually matters, they don't build for themselves alone. They build for others. They lead from service. It sounds simple. It sounds nice, but it's not always easy. Service isn't always convenient. It doesn't always show up with a spotlight. It doesn't always come with thanks. Sometimes it costs you your comfort. Sometimes it costs you your pride. Sometimes it costs you the chance to take the credit. But that's the point. Because when you serve from a real place, from a posture of humility, not a strategy for visibility, you gain something deeper than recognition. You gain meaning. You stop needing to be the hero. You stop needing to be the loudest voice in the room. You stop needing to be the most important person in every interaction. And something incredible happens. Your life starts to multiply. Your energy, your influence, your impact. Because you're not just adding value to yourself anymore. You're adding it to others. And when you live this way, your definition of success starts to shift. It's no longer just about what you achieve. It's about what you give. It's not just about how far you go. It's about who you bring with you. It's not just about what you build. It's about how people feel when they're around you while you build it. Service doesn't mean you have to be in a helping profession. It doesn't mean you sacrifice your vision. It means you walk into every room with a question in your heart. What can I contribute here? It means you carry your strength in a way that lifts others, not in a way that makes them feel small. It means you build systems that serve people, not just systems that scale. This concept isn't just about morality. It's about longevity. People who serve from real intention tend to last longer. Why? Because when your motivation is rooted in impact, you're more resilient. You don't quit as easily. You don't fold when it gets hard. You don't burn out as fast because you're not just doing it for ego. You're doing it for people. And people matter. They always have. They always will. In every industry, every family, every leadership position, every calling, your ability to see people, to honor people, to lift people, to serve people is what gives your work weight. It's what gives your life shape. It's what gives your success soul. So you make service a habit, not a marketing angle, not a charity project, a way of life. You look for ways to help that no one asked for.